So we're going to open the meeting for Conservation Commission for April 15th. We're going to do roll call. So we can get some. Is Ken here?
Yes.
Okay. Eleanor?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Paul? No Paul. Jennifer?
He's here. He's here.
Okay, Paul's here. Okay, Jennifer? Is Jennifer
Not
here?
here yet, but term technically starts in May.
Yeah, she's not appointed. She was appointed, but she can't start till May.
Oh, she can't start.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the first item is to approve the minutes for 4/1. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes?
No, I just made a minor edit to include that we talked about working on the presentation as well,
Okay.
and that's it. If you'll remember, Town Council Mullen said we should focus on the presentation and that we could take care of the regulations later. But I understand Judy's point about thinking it's a good idea to have us working on them anyway. So that's it. If you
Okay.
guys are comfortable with the edits, approve.
I wasn't present, so I will have to abstain.
I thought they looked good, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a
Second.
All in favor? Let's do roll call. Ken?
Yes.
Eleanor?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Paul?
Abstain.
And me. Oh, you abstained. Okay. Okay. The next item is, wait a minute. 60 Farm Street.
They continue to the next meeting.
Yeah, it's, oh, to May 6th. They continue to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate to talk about it here or at the end,
Okay.
but just thinking about continuity for this applicant
Uh-huh.
and how that works, because we have two people rolling off who were present for it, and then Jennifer's coming on and not being familiar
Mm-hmm.
with the project. So maybe talking through with Elaine sort of what the best practice is, and also making sure that our comments, like our requests, were addressed by the applicant. I don't know if Ethan, has reached out to them and requested updated maps and an updated package. That was our request. And then we had a to-do to go back and consult with DEP on the amended order. So if you think it's appropriate to talk about that now without getting into the application itself, we can, or I'm going to defer to you guys how to best handle this.
Well, you had a pretty long discussion on this the last meeting, didn't you? Or not?
We
Well,
did. Well, go on.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, the last meeting we had, I think it was also pushed till the May 6th. So it was the meeting before that we had discussed, but we had asked them for updated maps. And I think there were a few other outstanding questions that they were gonna get in touch with the supposed vendor supplier person about.
Okay. Yep. So you just had those outstanding questions.
But then, well, Ethan was asked to look into the amended order rules,
Yeah.
right? So I thought he was going to send us some guidance. He did.
Well, they're extending this to another meeting, right?
Okay, so we can talk about that then.
So why don't you just wait until we
Okay.
get the next meeting, and plus they'd be fresh in your mind.
Okay. And,
Okay,
and then as far as continuity, just following along, it was hard for me coming on to that,
mhm,
like a project where I never was part of the original notice of intent.
mhm, mhm.
So wasn't sure what the final outcome was supposed to look like there. And what they had provided us wasn't giving me, enough to assess like the before and after. So just, I'm curious with Elaine, when you've had amended orders of conditions, have you had a continuity situation where you have like a new commission? You don't want to burden the applicant, but we kind of need to know the essentials of what the original project was and
But this is
Well-
an amendment, right? So you need
Yes.
to fully understand what they're newly proposing to do,
right.
rather than fully understand what they've previously done. There's definitely a discussion on if it's a new filing.
Mm-hmm.
That would be difficult
Mhm.
to kind of figure out, but
Yeah.
we really only had one meeting, I think, and we didn't get much from them from that meeting. So I don't want to speak with anyone, but this isn't, a giant project we've done like 5 weeks and, really have
Yeah.
gone into
Okay.
it, and you had to be there as far as I'm concerned. And to be honest with you, I tried to actually stay on. I thought the project would be done by now, but it didn't work out that way.
Mm,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Well-
I think the only, we can talk later. I did some more research on it. But I do know they're supposed to provide, sorry, I got to go back to my notes. Let's continue on to something else. If I can,
Oh, well, I think, I still think it makes sense to carry, just work on it at the
they
next
come.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, as-built plans. That was in my
And
notes.
like Ken's saying, I don't think it's too much of a big deal.
Okay.
But, all right, so we're gonna move off of that. And we're gonna go down to other business. And the first thing we have is a wetland bylaw discussion. Who wants to take a look at that?
Jim, I said at the last meeting, there wasn't much to discuss because we took the edits that
Yeah.
Councillor Mullen made, and
Mhm.
I put up a clean copy. I asked Ethan to post it on the website.
Yeah.
It is posted on the website, but the link was not done correctly. I asked him to update it. He hasn't had last week. I guess he hasn't had a chance to reach out to Jennifer. If someone has Jennifer's contact information, who does the website, I think that's the person, I will reach out and have her correct it.
What was the correction?
Would you like me to share my screen? It says wetlands regulations and it links to the new wetlands bylaw. And then when you click on wetlands bylaw, it links to the old wetlands bylaw. So it's just, the
Okay.
links are wrong. I mean, it's a quick fix, but
Yep.
it's been like that for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So,
Ethan's in tomorrow, so he can
Okay.
take care of it.
okay, is he out on vacation?
He was out for a couple days.
Okay.
Should we start looking at the presentation? I know there was, it was included in the packet Ethan sent us, but I don't have PowerPoint, so I was not able to physically open that one.
Open it. We can look at it. It needs a lot of work. It's a lot of blank pages.
Wow.
And quite, I had sent some suggestions to him for slides a couple of weeks ago. And then also a template, because, I think since we're Wakefield, people are accustomed to seeing things, in the Wakefield red and white colors. So I suggested we use the town template, which Sherry had provided me. So I sent that along to him. Let me, if you guys want to see it, we can take a look and, I can make notes.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second. Okay. Let's share my screen. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I have to close a bunch of stuff to get this to work.
Hi, Kitty.
Let's see. Give me one. Okay, sorry. All right. Find the right file. Okay. He did send an example, one from Newburyport, which could be helpful. But so this is the current draft. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So that's the first slide. Hang on, I'm going to move you guys out of the window. Talks about us. What are wetlands? The jurisdiction. Protection Act.
What are you going to use for definition of what are wetlands? What are you suggesting there?
I have not focused on this yet. I'm sort of in the throes of my exam and can only do one thing at a time.
The West Newbury example had a definition of wetlands that are lands that are wet.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's funny, but it has to be simple. I don't know if you guys saw the MBTA overlay thing. That I thought they did a pretty good job of taking a complicated subject and kind of breaking it down. But I think we have to focus on, ideally keep it to 10 slides. Here we go. We can look at the West Newburyport one. But I think we have to explain, rather than the definitions, like why wetlands are important, why it's important to pass a wetlands bylaw, how it enhances, stormwater storage. I had all these things that I can't think of right now. Here we go.
Mhm.
I'm going to just share the other example he sent us. In his material. Here's the West Newton, or West Newbury. Let's see. Just open that up and share that.
may need to close the one you have open.
Yep, sorry, thank you. Ah, sorry, I have to pull
Stop
this
share.
away. Yeah, I'm trying to, oh, it's in my other window. Okay. Behind the kitty cat. All right, back to share. And since Jennifer's on, maybe she has some thoughts too. But so here's the West Newbury Conservation Commission bylaw presentation. So this one's got some good stuff. You know, I think it was also important to say we're streamlining or simplifying the permit process. So taking things out of zoning. Go to the next page. So these are facts. And Ethan was proposing a slide like this, which is good.
Do we have a lot of intermittent streams?
There are a ton,
Are there?
yes.
Okay.
So you really need to think whether you want to have a 200-foot buffer. If you
What-
want to make it like a riverfront, because that could be a big bone of contention.
What do we have right now?
100 feet from an
Okay.
intermittent stream.
Okay.
It's the same buffer, the wetland buffer.
Okay.
Judy, have those been mapped by any chance?
Some of them are. I
Mhm.
think engineering might have a more comprehensive mapping, but not all intermittent streams show up on the maps.
Mhm.
Yeah, is there a process for adding them?
I don't think so. To what
Okay.
map, like to Mass GIS?
Yeah, because there's like kind of a sizable one in my neighborhood and I've never seen it on a map. But I also don't know if it was the result of some kind of ditch when, you know, I-95 was built and what might have been wetlands became just what looks like a stream but could be a ditch, like a really long.
Right.
So, you know, there's some good stuff.
Yeah, I think it needs to be much more simplified. This
Yeah.
presentation was for the Board of Selectmen,
Mhm.
but I think it was a different iteration of what they may have given to the public.
Okay.
Yeah, this.
Yeah, honestly,
is a
this
lot
is
of
too
detail.
much. This
Yeah.
is too much.
I mean, there's a lot that can be pulled out of it, but it needs to be much more simplified.
Yeah. You know, I think diagrams like this are handy. And the vernal pool one. This is too, yeah, it's. So I'm just flipping through. We don't have fines. And it's interesting. I almost feel like if this is a standard practice. That's part of the wetlands bylaw, and we just codify it in the regulations. So it's almost making a bigger deal about this than it is. So I wouldn't even really talk about it. Let's see. That's it.
Could you
Yeah. Could I go?
go back 2 pages or 3
Mhm.
pages? Okay, wait a minute. Are these the fees that you're proposing? $425?
This isn't my presentation. We're just looking at
Oh,
a presentation of West Newbury.
Yeah, this is just an example on.
This is what Ethan sent us to look at.
okay.
Not proposing fees.
So I think it needs work. You know, when I'm done with my exam, I can, hopefully at the end of the month, I can spend time maybe with Ethan on this. If somebody else wants to work on regulations.
Mhm.
But really, I think we have to start mapping out. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You know, plan for engaging the public, doing a couple of soft sell meetings. It's not even sell, but just even if it's taking half an hour during one of our meetings and saying we're going to talk about this, inviting, you know, having it open to the public so people can comment, have a presentation when we do this, and as you get feedback and questions, you adapt the presentation.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Jennifer has her hand raised.
Jennifer?
One thing that I thought might be helpful for the presentation is a description of where the material in the bylaw came from. I think it would be helpful to know that most of it came from the MAC template. You know, so this is these are widely used standards, and some information about just how similar this is to other communities around us. I think that would be very helpful to people in making a decision on voting on this.
That's a great suggestion. Does anybody else have suggestions?
Oh, just another point, the slides, you know, go into some good detail about the Wetlands Protection Act, which I do think is important both for the slides and also for the presentation itself, because I'm not sure how many people have experience, you know, submitting an NOI. So I think it's good to assume that a lot of people don't know anything about the Wetlands Protection Act.
Mhm.
What kind of detail do you think would be helpful?
Well, I think what's in there is good, but I think it's just kind of important to talk through that in the sort of verbal presentation.
I think photos would be nice.
Yeah, I think my problem with that presentation is it's too many words on the page
Mm-hmm.
and quite dense for a general public presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Is our proposed bylaw supposed to be on the town website?
It's on the Conservation Commission website under policies and procedures.
Forms and policies?
Yeah. That might be kind of hard to find. Yeah.
Proposed wetland bylaw draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you click on that one, it takes you to the old version. But if you click on the regs, it takes you to the new version.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's what I was trying to correct. I think that was like probably an honest updating mistake.
Yeah,
You know.
I see that now.
From the web person. I also liked the graphic that shows, you know, all the towns around Wakefield that have bylaws.
Yeah, I think that's useful.
Yeah.
I think we need to think about how to capture people who would attend town meeting but wouldn't be affected by this bylaw. Try to get buy-in from them. You know, kind of a broader perspective,
Yeah.
because that, I mean, anyone who's been to town meeting, there are plenty of issues that come up that you couldn't really care less about. So you just, you know, then it's a random vote.
Right. That's a good suggestion. Elaine, what do you think? What has been your experience?
Well, I tell you, we passed a bylaw back in 1907 and have been using it right up until this year, when we have a bylaw committee of our own that's looking to present it to town meeting. And the one that we are proposing now is considerably more complex than the one that was passed in 1989. So I love Judy's idea, and I'll have to bring this back to Winchester, how to capture people who would not be affected. You know, we put it on the warrant. The chair of the Conservation Commission does a presentation before town meeting. We kind of hope for the best, and I believe we also have it up in our on our website as well. But we're not doing anything considerably different than you're doing at this end. You're doing everything we're doing.
Okay. I think, you know, to your point, Judy, for people who aren't as impacted, the habitat, you know, and the animals, birds and the animals seem to interest people the most when they realize how important it is for biodiversity and for storm management.
Right, but I think I mean, there's a lot of conversation about whether there's too much development in town, character of the town is changing. So that could be something you could grab onto, that this is a way to help preserve some of these areas. And like you mentioned, segue into, you know, aiding the habitat of the wildlife. And so I think it's kind of jumping on those concerns that people have and giving them kind of a refuge of how we could help preserve some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must say I strongly agree with that. You tell people if you want wildlife in Wakefield in 50 years, you have to preserve it now.
There's data from the Vision 2030 report on what people in Wakefield said was very important to them. And my recollection, and there's some stats in the report, but open space was one of the ones that there was the most consensus about. So maybe showing that data, you know, when Wakefield residents are surveyed, they, you know, say this is very important.
That's actually a good idea to speak to. Yes.
What about flooding, flood control? I try to think of it as, we know the people who want to protect animals and habitats will support it. What about the people who don't care about that kind of thing?
Right.
What can convince them?
That's the hardest one to convince.
So
Flood
I think
control.
one of them is flood control. And, you know, without wetland flooding, it's exasperated and, you know, whatever. I don't know what else I'm thinking about it, but
No, I think that's
other
a good that's a good point, because that's another way to capture people who aren't directly impacted by a wetland, but could be downstream and be feeling the effects of wetland fill or development adjacent to wetlands. So I think that's a good way to capture people that are further out on the fringe that wouldn't be impacted permit wise, but could be impacted from the outfall of that.
Yeah. This isn't necessarily confined to Wakefield, but I've definitely talked to a number of colleagues or people over the years who have had development near them, and they're near a wetland, and they've sort of experienced the loss of flood storage and flooding in their basements and things like that. So
I know it's important to capture people upstream, but the hardest people to get, well, people that are working on that have wetlands in their yards and stuff like that, they are the most important people to contact and keep aware of what's going on.
well, part of that is
But-
educating. Yeah, sorry,
But,
Ken, go.
but again, that's so few people, and you have to convince X percentage of the town to vote for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, okay, I suppose. I don't know. My experience is that it's very hard to get people to. We've gone door to door with this stuff in the past, and by these monkey surveys and stuff like that, and we had a hard time getting people to even, respond. If we brought them forms to fill out, and we said we go down the street, we'll pick it up on the way back. People don't even fill it out. I'm just saying it's hard to get people to, until they start getting water. Then they're totally convinced that that's what they should be looking at. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen any of these houses get flooded. I've seen a couple of them, and it's horrible when you have that water coming into your basement, and it just destroys everything.
Yeah.
Is there an angle on costs and on resources to the town for DPW having to deal with stuff like that?
Oh, that's a good.
I think that's a hard one to quantify. But then the effect of culverting streams as well, that, I mean, the water's gonna go somewhere. But also where we've had, we're still in a drought, the importance of groundwater recharge.
Yeah.
I mean, plenty of people get affected by the drought and then their water bill goes sky high because they want a green lawn.
Yeah.
Well, that goes along with open space and development, right? The more development, the less, opportunity for recharge, which means more water is flowing directly into water bodies in wetlands, which means more water is flowing into people's basements. Which means DPW has to go and deal with it rather than cutting the tree down that got knocked off that's blocking your driveway. Sorry, I'm just grasping here.
Does DPW actually pump out basements?
They have in the past, yeah.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
figured
yeah.
that was the homeowner's job.
No, I think in severe cases,
Yeah.
I'd say the fire department do it too.
Really? Like if a town sewer's backing?
If they have severe flooding, like in a basement or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in like catastrophic events that we've had.
We had a few.
Getting more common.
Right.
Anything else? Any other suggestions?
I think there will be questions for sure about how the bylaw would interact with 40A and 40B, so it might as well be addressed up front.
Yes, that's a good point.
And possibly questions about impacts on Lake Quannapout as well.
Doesn't doesn't 40B essentially override the local bylaw and it only is subject to the state wetland
Yes.
protection act
Yeah.
rules?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Is there an angle for using the lake as an example? Where bylaws protect areas that, feed into the
Well-
lake and reduce.
The bylaw would make the buffer zone a resource area, right? And that would reduce runoff into the lake.
I think that's a hard one for complete novices. I think that's a hard,
Mhm.
Well, can it just be broad and just say it benefit to the lake in making the lake better and cleaner?
Hmm.
If it's
Mhm.
true.
Hmm.
Sure.
One thing I did notice, I just thought of this, so it might not be extremely relative to what we're saying. But in Winchester, if you're doing any house work on your house or additions or something like that, you have to put in Caltech chambers. And so I think personally that if you have a development in Wakefield, if everyone puts in a chamber, that's going to help control the flood issues. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing something like that on this.
This for new buildings, Jim?
No, it's for additions. I had to do one just recently in
So-
Winchester.
Winchester has its own stormwater bylaw. Anything over 500 square feet has to be infiltrated. So probably send you the stormwater bylaw and you can, if you want to incorporate it in the Wakefield bylaw, over. But Winchester, bad flooding, really bad flooding.
Mm.
Got this 500 square foot rule. And the good thing about it is a building, even if you're not in a wetland. So it impacts the whole watershed, which is very helpful.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're mostly picking up roof runoff, aren't they? For the most part,
Pervious surface.
obviously.
Mhm. Elaine or Judy, have you heard of, I don't know, from other conservation agents, whether sort of simple bylaws are easier to pass than these long ones? Because given that Wakefield, doesn't have a bylaw at all, I think sometimes just something pretty simple and basic might be an
Mhm.
easier sell than doing a lot of things we would love to do, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
I think the simpler the better, especially where there are so many new bylaws that are being instituted in town.
Mhm.
Yeah. I agree with that 100% because that's
Yeah.
what.
And
some
aren't we coming up into this as part of a substantial revision come fall when we're
Mhm.
actually presenting this?
Yeah,
It will be part of a rather large set of bylaw revisions going on.
yeah,
So
Mm.
I'd agree. Let's keep it to a good basic document, but not
Yeah.
try to add a lot of bells and
Yeah.
whistles.
yeah. The other thing I thought of is we probably need to pinpoint those areas in the zoning ordinances that we would repeal.
Well, it's only
there's-
the stream setback.
Oh, they also have a 20-foot setback
For what?
for buildings from wetlands. I was surprised to see that.
Where, that's not in the zoning.
I saw something like that in the zoning, and thought I emailed you guys the reference, but we can go back and look at it. I could be mistaken, but I thought they had references to setbacks from water, like besides the stream setback.
Say that again.
Like I have to look at, this was like a few months ago. I think I emailed you guys the references in the zoning bylaw. Like there seemed to be more zoning rules that were wetlands related than just the stream setback.
Well, the floodplain district, but that is a separate. So I think that was mentioned.
Yeah, but no, this was different. This is in our existing bylaws. I'll have to watch the video because when I talked at the bylaw review committee, I referenced the passages I was seeing, and the attorney agreed that there was overlap, but in the case where there's two rules that might be conflicting, the more strict one would be upheld. So we can take a look at that, but I want to keep that on our radar, that we need to be ready to identify the things that we would want to pull out of the zoning bylaws. Anything else?
How would you work that in though? I think that could be confusing, like the stream setback bylaw. If people see that and say, well, it's 50 feet and now you're proposing 100 feet. I think a distinction between it's a totally separate permitting and it's an overlapping permit is fine.
Okay.
I think that distinction needs to be made.
Okay. I mean, that's a good point. I think planning board, for example, would ask us those questions because they've been used to seeing what's in the zoning rules.
Plus, you know, the planning board also, they do quite a bit of stuff indirectly for conservation, because I see when they do their projects, they're adding in stuff that we normally put in anyways. So you kind of getting that double punch out of it.
Yes. Yes.
And the more they stay informed, the better off we are.
Yes. And they want to be consistent.
Yeah.
With us.
Yeah.
So that's it. So I just want to keep that on our radar, that we should, you know, it's probably, to your point, Judy, not appropriate for a broad audience, but
it might be confusing to people.
Yeah.
Is the other zoning bylaw you were thinking of the open space development? Because that mentions open space and habitat.
Could be. There were a couple of them that
encouraging preservation of aquifers, natural resources, blah blah blah.
I think I found 2 or 3, yes, others that I was like, oh, don't we regulate this too? Or, you know, there's just some overlap.
Other benefits, so Ken brought up benefits for Lake Quannapowitt, and I was going to mention having more natural vegetation would help with managing the goose population, which people might find appealing.
More vegetation?
Yeah.
I don't know if that works. I think, what does Brahma say? She's an expert in that.
Yes, it works.
Yeah.
That may
that's what she
also,
would say. That's what she would say. And a lot of people will post about that on Facebook.
Okay, well, I guess the thing is, people have seen them just walking through the vegetation to the lake.
We have no vegetation around the lake.
Yeah, we do.
Not where the geese are.
Oh, the geese aren't just in one part of the lake.
Yeah, they go back and forth between the 2 beaches.
There's a lot of real estate out there. All right, well, I don't think that works, but that's just my opinion.
Does anybody have anything else?
I think it's good to look at this buffer zone area and what you're trying to accomplish with it. That's all I can say right now. It's just from what
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
I think that could be problematic too if you're making the buffer a resource area.
Doesn't our bylaw make the buffer a resource area?
No,
That's what I'm saying. I think that could be problematic, and that's something that for sure I think developers would jump on.
What's
think
the
we-
purpose of doing that, Ellen?
just offer protection, right?
It's protection. That's what all the other, like when you say you have a setback, right? Then
Yeah.
you're essentially, aren't you making the buffer zone a resource area? That's the purpose of a bylaw.
But the
No,
difference
that's
is
not.
that if you make the buffer zone a resource area, you have to permit. I mean, right now, we can authorize activities in the buffer. But if it becomes a resource area, then I would guess that makes it much more difficult to
Mhm.
permit activity in the buffer.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
Okay.
correct.
that's
Okay.
exactly
I
right.
believe in the MAC template, I think the MAC template document is clear that the buffer is a resource area.
Right, but that's an optional, it doesn't have to be a resource area.
I think the buffer zone should be your strongest argument for whatever you're going to do. I mean, because that is, we always go back. I mean, if you look at what we've done in Wakefield, how many projects have not been in a resource area? We don't have any on the resource areas. They're always in the buffer zone. So it's playing a big role for Wakefield. So I just think you have to really think about what you want to save, how you want to save it. Just generally protecting that area.
I'm not sure how you would have a setback if it's not considered a resource area.
Well, it's been there just as a
As a-
buffer.
As a
That's
buffer zone, you
it's a buffer to your work on the
still have a
resource.
setback with the buffer zone.
Mm.
Does
And
not have
plus,
to be defined as a resource.
somehow you have to account for, in some way, the fact that these are environments that are changing as the years go by. So you're going to have, things may be looking different 20 years from now. I don't know if there's any way to anticipate what that might.
But how do you protect open space if you don't protect a buffer? I mean, it's a modest setback. It's not 100 feet.
Well, that's the thing, is it going to be left at 25 feet, is what I'm saying. Because a lot of them have the buffer as a resource area for the 100 feet.
Sorry, say that again, Judy.
Some have the buffer as a resource area and it's 100 feet. So are you saying to keep it at 25 feet?
That's what our current bylaw is, isn't it?
I thought so, yeah.
It's a buffer. You're not, it's. I mean, you could have projects out there that don't even require a filing just because there's no alteration that could happen with the work that they're proposing. That's in the buffer zone. So I mean, it's for Wakefield. We have such small lots. I don't know how
Jim,
much.
have you read the bylaw? Like, maybe we should refresh and read it again, but I think it was pretty modest.
Yeah.
25 feet. And I don't,
So are you making that a no build for the first 25 feet from the resource area? Is that what you're doing?
essentially we're trying to encourage a no build.
Wow. I mean, it either is or it isn't.
Well, you can read it. It came from the MAC template. and the Concord template.
Yeah,
Town-
I'm just
town-
thinking about Wakefield.
Yeah, Attorney Mullen wasn't concerned. His feedback was, it's about time. This is reasonable.
Yeah, that's
It's
fine.
short.
But he's
You know,
not- No, but he's not out there enforcing it either, so, you know. It's not the same. I'm just saying that you have to think about these buffer zones. I'm not opposed to having 25-foot setback. We've gone down to 20, I think in some cases, maybe 15 in rare cases, but I mean, at 15 feet, you're doing nothing anyways. There's no mitigation at that point.
right. Right, it's minimum. And then as far as the regulations, if we can tackle those a little bit later on. We have to figure out a way to, you know, kind of have a running, like how to prioritize and plan. So if we have a meeting where there's not a lot going on, that we know, okay, we'll work on these two things and that we'll circulate and kind of get ahead and just focus on those two things. But the regulations, we can start. Like, again, I liked the Concord because they were short and simple. The attorney consultant who's working with the bylaw review committee really believes in keeping things simple. But you can start with that and layer in things from Linfield or the MAC template if we feel like something's missing. But that would be my suggestion for approaching the regulations.
All right. Is there any more to say on this, or are we all set for now?
I think we're all set. I'll
Okay.
work with Ethan.
All right, and so we all know that you talked to Tom Mullen, and you've already spoke about that, so you're all set with that?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay, and then how about the commission email? What's that about?
Well,
Who can
Haley
take care?
Haley takes care of it now, so someone else will have to take it over.
All right,
I can forward that login information out. I'll send it to Judy to send out to everyone.
Okay.
So we want to assign someone to take it on?
Yes.
Okay.
okay. Anything else?
Well, wait, I think we have to assign somebody to take it on.
Well, who wants to do it?
Jennifer, Paul, are you interested?
It's
Is
only
it-
forwarding the emails. It's not
Yeah.
addressing them.
Haley, is it something one can do from a phone, or do you have to be logged on a computer to do it?
I've always done it from my computer. I don't see why you couldn't do it from your phone. I know it's the Outlook web app, but I've always done it through a browser, which I'll send the link to.
Okay.
I only know the way that I've been doing it this whole time. Sorry.
Okay. No,
I think I have instructions from Bob from a while back on it as well, though. I can find those and send those as well.
Okay. I can do it. It's probably something I can check while I'm on the train. Unless Paul, or Jennifer, you want to do it. I'm not hearing an enthusiastic yes.
Save it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Anyone have any, is there
Yeah,
any public
yes.
out there?
Jimmy, very important. We have to do the confirmatory vote to delegate responsibility to Tom Mullen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, yep. All right,
So we just have to make sure we re-vote and record that everybody voted.
So I would like to make a motion that we vote to allow Tom Mullen to address the open meeting law complaint.
okay.
I'll second.
I think, yeah, and I think it's confirming that we already voted to allow Tom Mullen to address
Okay.
it. But yes, I'm a
Okay.
yes if you're counting votes.
Ken seconded.
Yes.
So
So
we
let's
need to call the
vote
vote.
individually.
All right, yep, let's do, so Ken,
Yes.
Eleanor, you're abstaining, or
Yes, I'm a yes.
you're a yes, okay. Haley,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, now,
And
there's no public here, correct?
We do. We have Linda Ireland's here.
Oh, okay, so,
She had
Linda-
sent
Trail
in,
steward.
yeah, Trail Stored, and she had sent us an email that was,
uh-huh,
yeah, she had a pressing update. Linda, are you there?
Photo that I've got in my, instead of on the screen. Are you in
Yeah.
gallery view? Is everybody in gallery view?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Yes.
So, in the center of the photo at the bottom is a fire circle, which I've partly disassembled. And on both the right and left-hand side, there's an awful lot of stacked dead wood
mm-hmm,
and a bucket. And I'm concerned because there is no fire road, I don't think, into Wakefield. So I don't understand the intention of this fire circle because directly above the fire circle, there are low hanging pine branches. So it makes no sense to have a fire circle with an overhanging pine tree. That's,
Where is
sorry.
this, Linda?
This is in the Wakefield Town Forest,
Ah,
but
Is
it's
it-
not on a main trail. So it's actually taken me 6 months, I think, before I found it. It's on a small trail, between two areas.
Is it behind the field, the softball field? If you went up that way?
The baseball softball field. Well, it's in the it's but basically in the center of the Wakefield Town
Yeah,
Forest.
I think that's been there for a while, like decades.
Okay, because I could see there's a green bucket there that looks relatively new.
Yeah, yeah, that's been a spot for a long time.
Some of the stacks of wood have got leaves on them, and I can tell that they've been there for decades. But other stacks look like they might be more recent. So in any case, what I've done is I've disassembled uh, the fire circle to some extent, tried to fill it in so it's not an obvious temptation for any kids who are on break and see a nice fire circle with all kinds of kindling around it.
yeah,
But I was going to suggest that we could probably repurpose these small
Wood?
trees to line trails
Yeah.
or trail edging.
Yeah.
oh,
And
I think it makes sense to disassemble them. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been to Breakheart recently, but there have been quite a few more fires there.
fires are generally, in my experience, at least in the Linfield Marsh, they tend to happen during school break if there's a
Mhm.
drought. And I think this year there probably won't be a drought because it looks to me like it's going to be pretty wet next week. So I'm not that worried, but I don't think there should be fire circles in places where if somebody was experimenting and they were just a kid, they wouldn't realize that that circle is built underneath a pine tree. And it, it's just a completely wrong place. You shouldn't have a fire circle anywhere, but you certainly shouldn't have it where you can easily start lighting up the pine trees. And I was going to say, I would like to contact, I think there's a mechanism for contacting the environmental police, a number you call, and then they post the deer blind that's in the middle of the forest.
Is there
and then
deer
they come
blinds
and
up
remind- And then they remove it. It's attached to the tree with some kind of lock.
Oh, I've been looking for that. I could not find
Is
that
it a
again.
deer stand?
Yes.
Yes, it's a deer stand in the middle of the forest.
Hmm.
And the environmental police are going around and removing them. There's a procedure where you post a sign saying that this is going to be removed, and then they go in with bolt cutters and they cut it off the tree.
Now, I thought that the town allowed them to hunt bow and arrow in Wakefield.
In the Wakefield Town Forest?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if in the town forest, but I know that they do.
Yeah, I don't know that
do
it's,
it.
yeah, I don't know that it's prohibited.
What?
I don't know that it's prohibited. I don't know where, if there's a certain area, but
I thought Bill told me hunting like that was prohibited, but who can we, check with?
the police,
Okay.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have a deer blind on town property.
no.
No, no, they shouldn't have. You should just check it out before you, do anything.
Well,
We've seen it. Yeah.
It's very common to have, these are all over Massachusetts, these illegal blinds. So you're saying you think that this is legal?
I don't know. I know some people that hunt deer in Wakefield. So they must be in the town forest. I don't know where else you're going to be. But
Right, but whether the
I'm just
hunting is
thinking,
legal or not is separate from whether this,
I'm just saying you
ban
should
from
probably
the-
check and see what the regulations are as far as that goes, because there's a lot of time frames for different animals that they actually can shoot or kill.
I think Linda's saying that the environmental police have a process for removing these.
Yeah, removing them, but I mean, do you need permission to do that too, or is it another layer above that?
I wouldn't think so. When I've talked to
I wouldn't think
Bill,
so either, Donna.
he said they remove them all the time.
Okay, I'm just saying, you should go to a reputable source and just find out from there.
Okay.
So would that be Dennis then? I mean, who actually has jurisdiction over this?
I don't know. That's a good question.
No, it wouldn't be Dennis.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be like the police department, huh?
It would be the police department?
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking they're the only ones walking around with guns.
Okay.
Well, I think that if hunting is allowed, it should be posted and people should be aware.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
lot of
Yeah,
dog
it's-
walkers in there, and I would
Yeah.
be very uncomfortable if I thought somebody was hunting in the same area. So,
I'm
That seems
pretty
like a
sure it's
major
not
safety
allowed.
issue. No.
I know they hunt along the railroad tracks that where it goes under the highway. It's the area that gets flooded all the time. They hunt deer out there. I've seen the remains, and I don't know if it's animals that are getting them or if it's or if it's a person shooting it. But I have seen dead animals out there.
so the railroad tracks are where that they're
They
hunting?
go under the highway, under 128 across Brewery Meadow.
Oh, through Reedy Meadow. Okay. That's probably poaching.
Yeah, it could be.
So Ken just sent the bylaw, the Wakefield bylaw about hunting.
Oh,
And it said, no hunting within the limits of town unless permission is granted by the chief of police or his or her designee.
Okay.
Okay, that answers the question.
So I just contact the chief of police to make sure he hasn't given permission for hunting in the forest, and then contact the environmental police to have it removed.
That would sound like a logical thing to do.
Okay.
Ken,
Okay,
did you
thank you.
send that to everyone or just to,
Just Judy, I can send it to anyone. It's
Yeah.
literally 2 lines. It says no person shall hunt or discharge firearms, blah, blah, and then,
Yeah, see, that's why
Fine.
they go to
Thank you.
bow and arrow, Ken.
no, well, it says hunt. It doesn't, it
Yeah,
says hunt
yeah, but,
or discharge, so.
well, yeah.
If you can
I know
send
they've
those
got-
phrases and the,
I know they've got some wording in there on that, because I've run across this before.
This is all I found, and this is granted, this is just a super quick Google search, so it's a good
Yeah.
idea to contact the chief, but this is all I found. If you can see my screen, no person shall hunt or discharge any firearms. It doesn't
Yeah.
say. I don't know, this is what it says. Take it for what it's worth.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not, I wouldn't be the one interpreting it, so.
well, it's
I-
pretty clear. No person shall hunt within the limits
Yeah.
of the town.
Yeah,
Doesn't say, and then it's also or discharge firearms. So you can't shoot, can't go, trap shooting either without authorization. But they're two separate things there, Jimmy.
Hunting and firearms, yeah.
Yeah,
okay, I'm just saying, I
I
just
think
want
it's pretty
to
clear.
know around.
Right, they may be able to use bow and arrow hunting, but there's still
Then-
regulations around when and where.
No. It says
Only
no
if
hunt.
the chief of
So,
police authorizes it.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, they have time frames for hunting season for different animals, like beavers would be one.
Yes, but they still need to then also get permission.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I
That's,
think the language here is pretty clear.
Okay,
Bill had told me no hunting within town limits.
I'd say just check with the police department and get a better
Okay.
explanation.
Well, we need to ask the police department if they've authorized anything.
No? What?
We would need to understand from the police department if they have authorized hunting in the
Yeah.
town forest.
Yeah,
So Linda, maybe one of the things you want to ask about hunting permits is if there's a permit to hunt in a particular place. So if you get a hunting permit, maybe you can't hunt everywhere in town. Maybe you can only hunt in a particular part of town.
mhm,
But
Can't
that would
hunt
be-
in Wakefield, period, I don't think. I think that's pretty clear. I mean, for example, in Boxford, in state forests, you can hunt, but not town forests.
But it says unless by permission, the police, which means just hunting licenses.
Oh, you're saying that the chief of police could have given permission to somebody to hunt.
Yeah, that's a hunting, that's basically a hunting license, at least as far as I know. So you
I
might want to, if you're issuing hunting licenses, are you issuing specific to a particular place?
I thought that the hunting licenses are probably through the state. I'd have to look into that.
That's a good question to ask the chief of police.
Okay, I'll do that.
So
Right now,
if
we
you
don't
get
know,
a
we don't even know what we don't know about
if you
hunting.
get a hunting license, it doesn't give you permission to hunt in one place or another. It just allows you to hunt. You have to then find a place where hunting is allowed to use that license. So it sounds like there's no hunting in Wakefield unless the chief of police says there is. So I think checking with the chief of police is probably the easiest bet.
It's true.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I'm also, just a heads up, all the potential vernal pools in the Wakefield Town Forest on the potential vernal pool map are indeed vernal pools with breeding amphibians, and I'll be trying to certify them.
Amazing. Thank you,
Thank
Linda.
you.
Linda, have you looked at the one, near the school? Is that thing recovered or?
The one, no,
It
yes,
was that
I did
one big
actually.
one.
Yeah, I looked at it this afternoon. It's almost completely empty. There's a puddle.
Oh, Jesus.
It never recovered.
Mhm. Okay. Well, maybe when they're done, get more water, I don't know. All right, so if everyone has said everything they want to say,
Um,
someone say something?
I think the only other question Julie, we got an email from Julie earlier. We have Julie and sorry, I'm being flaky. We had a lot of people who were very interested in that Beacon Street project by the lake behind the cemetery. I went down and I noticed on my weekly walk that the flags were up, but the excavation flags were a lot wider than the current roads that are there and the current path. And I just wasn't expecting that. And I wasn't sure if it was that I misread the plans or, they're doing more work than we in the commission had understood. So I had forwarded my exchange with Bill to the commission mailbox. I wasn't sure if other people had taken a look to see. I guess I wasn't expecting so much right near the lake. Like that was.
So my understanding based on Bill's response was that they go wider for the dig safe survey, but that is not the actual work area.
Okay. So this was the part he didn't reply to. What is like the dig safe area? Because to me that implies digging.
So you mark out a large area to
Okay.
check for utilities. So it's usually an oversized area because you want to capture as much potential, utilities that come into place. But just putting down like a marking for dig safe doesn't, it means that's your limit of work, but it doesn't mean you're going up to that edge. It's clearly a sign for utility companies to look within that area and to understand where your scope of work is to mark any kind of potential utilities.
Okay. Do we think utilities would be right along the lake edge there?
They have to do a dig safe anyway.
In order to
Okay.
do any work, you have to dig safe all of those kinds of excavation by law.
Okay. Okay. No, that's super helpful. Okay. I didn't fully understand his response, so I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
I'm ready to close if everyone else is
Yeah.
ready.
I think we just say goodbye, Haley and Ken.
Yes, we'll miss you.
Thanks all.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for your time
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
and years.
I'll make that last motion then to close the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Eleanor,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and me as well. So, all set.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
All.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.